In this video, I will explain to you what the tip is, how to help all low level players and even you, give context how and why to apply it, because it's not that straightforward. Since this tip is to help all low level players, we first need to understand how their account even looks like. If we look here, we can see that they got quite some characters. Dr. Ratio isn't included here, because he isn't free anymore. And what you might have noticed is that all of these characters, only one of them is useful for them if we give it to them. And that is Herta. And why? I will explain that to you. What low level players mostly farm are traces, Ascension materials, and Echo of War, of course, 3 times per week. But they never farm relics, because relics is something that will come later into the game for them. Right now it's not our focus, because the only relics they would get is purple relics. You might be thinking, so the only character I should set as support are like DPS characters. Yes, but it is more than that. Because if you just set your DPS character as a support, it will take them quite a long time to clear it. Because you need to think about what DPS character. You need to set characters that they can actually use. So we know that they farm traces, Ascension materials, and Echo of War. That's the thing that they most struggle with. If you look here, there are many DPS that we can choose from to give them. But we just shouldn't give our strongest DPS. We need to tactically choose which DPS to give them. So, for traces, you need to give them these characters specifically. Well, of course, at Preservation, there are no DPSs. Naivety characters take a bit too much time, I'd say, to farm it for low level players. Because what if it doesn't kill him? Naivety characters only truly shine if there are 2 or 3 in your team. And as a low level player, you don't focus on that. Hunt characters aren't also important for trace farming for low level players. And harmony characters aren't also the best for low level players to give them as support. But setting erudition characters as support is what could really help them. But not everyone. Surfer, for example, isn't that great. Nobody really has built her. And her skill only hits 3 characters. QQ is too much RNG. Jade's quite good, but she needs a bit of ramping up. Himeka could be nice, but her weakness breaking takes a bit too much time. Herta is a great character to set as support, because her skill hits every enemy. And because the enemies are low level, your Herta, because if you're a veteran, would potentially one-shot them. So that would make the life of low level players very easy. Argenti is also a great character to set as support, because his skill also hits all enemies. And of course, Yingyuan too. Another character to set as support is Clara, because her skill also targets all enemies, and that would potentially one-shot all of them, making the life of low level players way easier. So the best characters to set as support to farm traces with for low level players is Yingyuan, Herta, Clara, and Argenti. Those 4 would be great. So let's have a look at which character you should set as support, so that low level players have an easier time to farm their Ascension materials with. Ascension bosses are tanky, and one-shotting them is quite hard. Naivety characters could be useful to set as support to farm Ascension materials with for low level players. But it might take a bit of time, it could be risky, but we can do way better. Only Welt could be an exception, but his skill could also target the small enemies and waste potential damage. Akron is of course great. If you have her, you can set her as support, because her technique technically one-shots the first wave and also the second wave. Hunt characters could also be used by low level players to farm Ascension materials, but since all of them technically just target one enemy with their skill and ult, we can do way better. We don't set harmony, of course. Erudition could be quite nice, because Argenti, Herta, Yingyuan technically one-shots the first wave of the Ascension enemies. But setting destruction characters is technically the best, because most of them have a skill that targets 3 targets. Setting Yunli as a support could be dangerous for low level players, because she wants to be attacked and takes a lot of time. The best characters to set actually is Jinglui, because she technically one-shots the Ascension bosses with her skill if she's in her state. Sui if they are quantum weakness. Firefire is great. Dang Heng is great, because with just 3 skill points the boss is dead. Clara is not that great for Ascension bosses because it would take a long time. You could set Blade, he's great. And Arlon, we never use of course. And now, because you can only set 3 characters as support, we need to think about what character can you set for the low level players to farm the Echo of War bosses with. For the Echo of War bosses, you just set your best DPS, even single target DPS like Butil are great, since he can one-shot them. One thing you should keep in mind when setting your DPS as support is that your DPS should be a little bit fast. The best way to do that is just set your speed boot, that should be good enough. Because if you have a look now, my Ging 1, he has a speed boot, and we assume that the low level players are farming the level 3 trace field. If you have a look at my Ging 1, I have set him as support. Low level players select my Ging 1 as support and they just use his skill and they are done with the wave. As you can see, that's how easy it is. Because now the enemy hasn't gotten a turn first. But if I change his boots to attack boots now that I have changed his boots to attack boots, we see that farming with him isn't that nice anymore for low level players. As you can see, he is getting targeted, and that could potentially be the rest of the team. If you want your character to be used, do this one thing too. If you want your character to be used, go to your profile and change your DPSs to the ones I just told you in this video. If you have all that set, how can we make low levels players use them? Well, this is the tip. Once per week, it just takes 5 minutes. You go to your friend list. Now, the golden tip that you just have to do 5 minutes per week is to go to your friend list, sort by online time, and remove everyone who hasn't been online for longer than a day. Then you go and you add everyone who is Trailblaze level 30 or lower. You could also remove all friends who are higher than level 30, but if they are online, why would you remove them? This way you can make sure that your characters are getting used, you get 20k credits per day, and you help all low level players. Even if you are not an endgame player, you can still try to add the DPSs of which I just told you, so that you can get those free 20k credits. And if you are like, damn, that was really well thought through, have a look at this next video, you won't regret it, I hope.